Так, мы поехали. Давай, ты хочешь хлопнуть?
Да. Раз, два.
Здесь уже не надо хлопать. Тут не надо хлопы делать, хорошо? Можешь вот так. Все, хорошо, поехали.
Так,
давай,
всё,
да.
подожди.
Друзья, последняя заключительная часть. Эту часть по снэпу мы пройдемся быстро, да? Снэп это кто?
I shall never forget the view of the hunt I had that day.
We were on one of those large,
Oh.
flat-headed.
We were on one of those large, flat-headed bodies that give a kingdom to the eye. When Hilton, who had been scanning the vast country with glasses, exclaimed, "I see him! There he goes, toward Skull Creek. Guess it's a coyote." Now the first thing is to get the greyhounds to see the prey, not an easy matter, as they cannot use the glasses, and the ground was covered with sagebrush hiders. Then the dogs' heads.
Not hiders.
Hiders. Hires.
Not yes, higher, just
Higher.
sagebrush higher.
And-
Так, стоп. А что вот это за слово? Sagebrush.
Это такая трава. На русском это будет полынь.
Да, sagebrush. Brush это как щетка, и она sage. Sage это шалфей. Тоже sage это шалфей, это тоже трава.
3 секунды.
Sagebrush higher than. Ты видишь? Higher than dogs' heads. Dogs' heads.
Then the dogs' heads.
Дальше поехали.
But Hilton called hoo-hoo dander and leaned aside from his saddle, holding out his foot at the same time. With one agile bound, Dander leaped on the saddle, and there stood...
Stop. Leaped on the saddle. Leaped. Что это значит?
Это значит прыгнул на. Это типа высокий прыжок.
Leap это вскочил.
Вскочил или...
Dander leaped, вскочил, leaped to the saddle. Saddle это что? Седло, правильно?
Седло.
На коне.
На коне.
На лошади saddle. Правильно?
Осел.
На осле. Но они на осле не ездили. То есть leaped to the saddle это заскочил на седло, запрыгнул на седло.
And there stood balancing on the horse while Hilton kept pointing. There he is, Dander. Seek him. See him down there. The dog gazed earnestly.
Gazed earnestly. Что это значит gazed?
Смотрел.
Просматривал, да.
Просматривал очень хорошо, внимательно.
Да, gaze earnestly это хорошо, честно, справедливо, хорошенько.
Where his master pointed, then seeming to see.
Seeming to see.
He sprang to the ground with a slight yelp and sped away.
Sure.
The other dogs followed after in an ever-lengthening procession, and we rode as hard as we could behind them, but losing time, for the ground was cut with gullies.
Stop. Was cut with gullies. Что это gullies?
Я не знаю, что такое gullies.
Gullies это gully, это овраг. То есть cut with gullies, ground was cut with gullies. Они, значит, помчались на лошадях. Right road as hard with them. Losing time for ground was, то есть поверхность ground. Земля была вся перерезана оврагами. Овраг это что? Gullies это овраг, это такая впадина большая в земле. Такая большая впадина. То есть надо вниз, а потом вверх, вот так. И она...
Поставишь фотку.
И это поперек, хорошо это поставлю. И вниз-вверх были овраги. То есть spotted
with badger holes.
Да,
badger hole, что такое badger holes?
Это грызуны, да?
Badger.
Badger это барсук, badger. Hamster, badger это все вот эти грызуны.
Так, давай. Что такое badger holes? Я так понимаю, это...
Барсучьи норы.
Барсучьи норы, где они там живут.
And covered with
rocks and sage that made full speed too hazardous. Сначала, что такое sage?
Это шалфей.
Шалфей.
Ну такая же похожа на полынь шалфей.
Шалфей это...
Кустарники.
Да. И hazardous.
Опасный.
Full speed to hazardous — это полная скорость, слишком опасная. We all fell behind, and I was last. Of course, being least accustomed to the saddle. Accustomed тоже слово сложное. Это значит привыкший.
Accustomed это значит приспособленный.
We got several glimpses of the dogs flying over the level plain or dropping from a side in gullies to reappear at the other side.
Stop. To
Reappear.
reappear at the other side.
Появиться опять.
Yeah. Let's go correct.
Dander, the greyhound, was the recognized leader, and as we mounted another ridge, we got sight of the whole chase, a coyote at full speed. The dogs a quarter of a mile behind, but gaining.
Mile behind, but gaining. It's the end. Это конец. Gaining.
Gaining, я думала, gaining speed, ну ладно. When next we saw them, the coyote was dead, and the dogs sitting around panting, all but two of the foxhounds and Ginger Snap. Too late for the fracas, remarked Hilton.
Так, что значит fracas?
Драка.
В единственном числе. Too late for слишком поздно для драки. В единственном числе. Fracases это драки. Fracas драка. Так, поехали дальше.
Remarked Hilton, glancing at these last foxhounds. Then he. Подожди, сейчас переместимся.
Then
he proudly patted Dander. Didn't need your perp after all, you see.
Did need your perp after all. You see, perp це pop. Pop. Другое, более редкое произношение pop. Perp.
Takes a heap of nerve for 10 big dogs to face one little coyote, remarked the father sarcastically. Wait till we run onto a gray. Next day we were out again, for I made up my mind to see it to a finish.
Made up my mind. Что это значит? Что за выражение такое? Made up my mind. I made up my mind.
Made up my mind. Это...
To make up somebody's mind, your mind.
Это как ты думаешь, типа...
Change your mind, передумал. Make up my mind, это так решил.
Решил, да. From a high point, we caught sight of a moving speck of gray. A moving white speck stands for antelope, a red speck for a fox, a gray speck for either gray wolf or coyote, and which of these is determined by its tail.
Stop. Speck. What is that?
Это маленькая точка, speck. То есть красный red speck — это красная точечка. If the glass shows the tail's down, it is a coyote. If it's up, it is the hated gray wolf.
Why hated?
Hated.
Hated.
Yes.
Ты сказала hated.
Hated. Dander was shown the game was as before, and led the motley mixed procession.
Что такое motley?
Это
Motley.
типа много цветов.
Так, motley это значит пестрый. Пестрый в цветах.
Да.
Motley. Как сказать пестрая рубаха?
Это там много цветов.
Нет, на английском motley.
Motley shirt.
Motley shirt, пестрая рубаха.
As he had before, greyhounds, wolfhounds, foxhounds, danes, Bультерьер, horsemen. We got a momentary view of the pursuit.
Of the с правильное ударение.
Pursuit.
Of the pursuit.
Это погоня, pursuit. A grey
Преследование,
wolf.
дословно.
A grey wolf it surely was, looping away ahead of the dogs. Somehow I thought the first dogs were not running so fast now as they had after the coyote. But no one knew the finish of the hunt. The dogs came back to us one by one, and we saw no more of that wolf.
Отличненько. sarcastic remarks.
Sarcastic remarks and recrimination were now freely indulged in by the hunters. Что такое recrimination?
Recrimination — это значит взаимное обвинение. To incriminate, слово incriminate — это значит обвинять, incriminate. То есть обвинять в каком-то криминале, incriminate, recriminate. Recrimination — это взаимное обвинение в криминале. Were now freely indulged in by hunters. Indulged in
by the hunters. Scared. Palm scared. Это тут говорят типа...
Not palm, plum scared.
Это
Scared, scared.
По старому английскому, типа, они боегузы, так сказать можно. Они боегузы.
Scared, plum scared.
Was the father's disgusted comments on the pack. They could catch up easy enough, but when he turned them on, they lighted out from home. Па.
Как вот это британцы, знаешь что? Па. Фу. Черт. Да. Типа наша. Да. Вот это па.
Where's that their unsurpassable, fearless, scared terrier? Asked Hilton scornfully.
Scared or North Terrier.
Это он спросил, где Снэп.
Ну да.
I don't know, said I. I'm inclined to think he never saw the wolf, but if he ever does, I'll bet he sails in for death or glory.
Да.
That night, several cows were killed close to the ranch, and we were spurred to another hunt. Ranch — это типа barn, где коровы живут, и spurred — это они были присуждены типа до еще одной погони за волком.
Шпорить. Мы были пришпорены. To spur, S-P-U-R, это шпора. Или пришпорить лошадей, как чтобы они бежали быстрее, их пришпаривают. Шпора — это сзади, вот у тебя ботинок, и на ботинке
и там,
такая
типа...
звездочка такая. На ковбойской ботинке сзади звездочка, вот это называется шпора. И вот это spur — это когда шпорят, пришпоривают.
It opened much like the last. Late in the afternoon, we sighted a gray fellow with a tail up, not half a mile off. Hilton called Dander up on the saddle. I acted on the idea and called Snap to mine. His legs were so short that he had to leap several times before he made it. Scrambling up at last with my foot as a halfway station, I pointed and sicked for a minute before he saw the game, and then he started out after the greyhounds, already gone, with energy that was full of promise.
Я не успеваю за тобой гнаться.
The chase this time led us not to the rough breaks along the river, but toward the high open country, for reasons that appeared later.
Стой, я. We were close together as we rose to the upland and sighted the chase half a mile off, just as Danner came up with the wolf and snapped at his haunch.
Что такое ханч? Люди, я даже не знаю, что такое ханч. Ханч — это значит бедро.
Ляжка.
Ляжка, бедро. The grey wolf turned around to fight, and we had a fine view. The dogs came up by twos and threes.
God bless you.
Barking at him in a ring, till last the little white one rushed up. He wasted no time barking, but rushed straight at the wolf's throat and missed. It yet seemed to get him by the nose. Then the 10 big dogs closed in, and in 2 minutes the wolf was dead. We had ridden hard to be in at the finish, and Though our view was distant, we saw at least that Snap had lived up to the telegram, as well as to my promises for him. Now it was my turn to crow, and I did not lose the chance. Snap had shown them how, and at last the Mendoza pack had killed a grey wolf without help from the man.
Without help from the man. Да, без помощи от мужиков, от мужчин.
От людей.
От людей. Ну, здесь, наверное, там на охоте мужики в основном были, от мужиков. Что как переводится we had ridden?
Мы типа ехали.
Вы ехали верхом. Ride, ride, road, ridden, right?
Да.
Ridden. Это present perfect или past perfect? Вот это.
Это past perfect.
Правильно, past perfect. Долго думаешь быстрее.
There were two things to mar the victory somewhat. First, it was a young wolf, a mere
Это простой.
a young cub, hence his foolish choice of country. Second, Snap was wounded. The wolf had given him a bad cut in the shoulder. As he rode in proud procession home, I saw he limped a little. Here, I cried. Come up, Snap. He tried once or twice to jump to the saddle, but could not. Here, Hilton, lift him up to me. Thanks. I'll let you handle your own rattlesnakes, was the reply.
Stop. Was the reply. Rattlesnake. Что это такое?
Это такие змеи.
Rattle. Давай, скажи просто rattle.
Rattle это...
Погремушка.
Погремушка.
Да,
Звучит как
rattlesnake
погремушка.
это гремучая змея. Да, поехали.
Was the reply. For all knew now that it was not safe to meddle with his person. Here, Snap, take hold, I said, and held my cord to him. He seized it, and by that I lifted him to the front of my saddle, and so carried him home.
Stop. Quirt. Held my quirt. Что это quirt? Ну, это старая упряжки, там все. Riding whip. Хлыст, типа хлыста какого-то. Quirt это какой-то хлыст.
Для лошади.
Для лошадей, погонять лошадей хлыст, да.
I cared for him as thought he had been a baby. He had shown those cattlemen how to fill the weak place in their pack. The foxhounds may be good, and the greyhounds swift, and the Russians and the Danes fighters, but they're no use at all without the crowning moral force of grit that no one can supply so well as a bull terrier. On that day, the cattlemen learned how to manage the wolf question, as you will find if ever you are at Mendoza. For every successful wolf pack, there has with
Все, поехали.
it a bull terrier, preferably of the Snap Mendoza breed.
Снэп Мендоза.
Next day was Halloween, the anniversary of Snap's advent. The weather was clear, bright, not too cold, and there was no snow on the ground. The men usually celebrated day with a hunt of some sort, and now, of course, wolves were the one object. To the disappointment of all, Snap was in a bad shape with his wound.
Stop. Disappointment. Что это значит? Disappointment. To the disappointment. If you are disappointed, Что это значит? Какой ты? When you are disappointed by something. Разочарованный, да. Disappointed, disappointment это разочарование. Правильно, молодец.
He slept as usual at my feet, and bloody stains now marked the place. He was not in a condition to fight, but we were bound to have a wolf hunt, so he was beguiled to an outhouse and locked up.
Stop, beguiled.
So he was beguiled to an outhouse and locked up.
He was beguiled. Это что значит?
Это значит...
He was beguiled, то есть отвлеченный вниманием.
Да, типа...
Ему отвлекли внимание, типа обманули и отвлекли внимание. Обманом или типа того.
Well,
Заняли чем-то другим. Beguile это занимать чем-то, отвлекать внимание. Beguiled to outhouse.
To an outhouse
To an
and
outhouse.
looked up.
Ты понял, да?
Да.
Все.
Well, we went off. I, at least with a sense of impending disaster, I knew.
Impending, смотри, impending, что это значит? Impending.
Impending это который сейчас придет.
Надвигающийся. Disaster. Impending disaster.
I knew we should fail without my dog, but I didn't realize how bad a failure it was to be. Afar among the buttes of Skull Creek, we had roamed when a white ball appeared bounding through the sagebrush, and in a minute more Snap came growling and stump waggling up to my horse's side. I could not send him back.
Again, sagebrush, полынь. Buttes.
Buttes.
Вот это звучит как buttes. Это у нас переводится как
Холмы.
или горы, или высокие холмы с очень крутыми склонами.
Крутыми такие,
Buttes.
с очками. He would not take no such orders, not even from me. His wound was looking bad, so I called him, held down the quirt, and chopped him to my saddle. There, I thought, I'll keep you safe till we get home. Yes, I thought, but I reckoned not with Snap, the voice of Hilton, who announced that he had sighted a wolf.
He had sighted a wolf. Had sighted это что значит? He had sighted.
Увидел.
Он заметил, правильно.
Заметил, увидел. Dander and Riley, his rival, both sprang to the point of observation, with the result that they collided and fell together, sprawling in the sage. But Snap, gazing hard, had sighted the wolf not so far off, and before I knew it, he leaped from the saddle and bounded, zigzag, high-low, and in and under the sage, straight for the enemy, leading the whole pack for a few minutes. Not far, of course. The great greyhound sighted the moving speck, and the usual procession strung out on the plain. Strung out on the plain. It promised to be a fine hunt, for the wolf had less than half a mile start, and all the dogs were fully interested.
Okay.
They've turned up Grizzly Gully, cried Garvin. This way we can head them off. So we turned and rode hard around the north side of Halmer's Butte, while the chase seemed to go round the south. We galloped
Again,
Butte. I said
Buttes.
Butte.
Butte, как мы сказали, это вершина холма или холмы. Butte.
Well, the chase seemed to go round the south. We galloped to the top of Cedar Ridge and were about to ride down when Hilton shouted, "By George, here he is! By George, here he is! We're right onto him!" He leaped from his horse, dropped the bridle, and ran forward. I did the same. A great gray wolf came lumbering across an open plain toward us.
Toward stop, bridle. Это что? Bridle это уздечка, это drop the bridle. Drop the bridle, бросил уздечку. Вот это на коне, когда ты коня держишь,
Да,
ты уздечкой показываешь, куда ему идти.
Понял.
Вот это bridle называется.
His head was low, his tail out level, and 50 yards behind him was Dander, sailing like a hawk over the ground, going twice as fast as the wolf. In a minute the hound was alongside and snapped but bounded back as the wolf turned on him. They were just below us now, and not 50 feet away. Garvin drew his revolver, but in a fateful moment Hilton interfered. No, let's see it out. In a few seconds the next greyhound arrived, then the rest in order of swiftness. Each came up.
In order of swiftness.
Each came up full of fight and fury, determined to go right in and tear the grey wolf to pieces, but in each turn swerved aside and leaped and barked around at a safe distance. After a minute
At the same distance, period. After a minute
or so, the Russians appeared. Fine big.
Russians appeared. Смотри, this word. Swerve. Turn, swerve. Swerve это как бы свернуть. Turn swerved. Свернул aside. Резко в сторону. Резко ушел в сторону куда-то. Swerve. Swerved.
Dogs were there. Their distant intention, no doubt, was to dash right at the old wolf, but his fearless front, his sinewy frame, and death-dealing jaws awed them long before they were near him. And they also joined the ring, while the desperado in the middle faced his way, and that ready for any or all.
Ready for all.
Now the Danes came up, huge-limbed creatures, any of them as heavy as the wolf. I learned their heavy breathing. I heard their heavy breathing tightened into a threatening sound as they plunged ahead, eager to tear the foe to pieces. But when they saw him there, grim, fearless, mighty of jaw, tireless of limb, ready to die if need be, but sure of this, he would not die alone. Well, those great Danes, all three of them, were stricken, as the rest had been, with a sudden bashfulness.
Bashful. Робкий, застенчивый. Bashfulness, застенчивость. Sconfusionность, bashfulness. Застенчивость, sconfusionность.
Not now. But as soon as they had got their breath, they were not afraid of a wolf. Oh no, I could read their courage in their voices. They knew perfectly well that the first dog to go in was going to get hurt, but never mind that. Presently, they would bark a little more to get up enthusiasm.
Башка такая.
And as the 10 big dogs were leaping round the silent wolf, at bay, there was a rustling in the sage at the far side of the place.
Стоп. Rustling, что это?
Rustling это как пакет, когда
шелест.
Шелест. Then a snow-white rubber ball, it seemed, came bounding, but grew in a little Bультерьер and Снэп, slowest of the pack, and last came panting hard, so hard he seemed gasping. Over the level open he made, straight to the changing ring round the cattle killer, whom none dared face. Did he hesitate?
Стоп. Cattle killer. Кого они имеют в виду?
Коровы. Это волк убивает коров.
Он волка имел в виду, правильно.
No. Did he hesitate? Not for an instant, though the ring of the yelping pack, straight for the old despot of the range, right for his throat, he sprang, and the grey wolf struck his 20 scimitars.
Scimitars это что?
Это такие мечи.
Зубы.
Ну, тут они говорят про зубы, но это по-настоящему мечи.
Ну, да, это как бы в переносном смысле.
But the little one, it foiled at all, sprang again, and then what came I hardly knew. There was a whirling mass of dogs. I thought I saw the little one clenched on the grey wolf's nose. The pack was all around.
Clenched.
We could not help them now, but they did not need us, as they had a leader of dauntless mettle. And when in a little while the final scene was done, there on the ground lay the grey wolf, a giant of his kind, and clenched on the nose was the little white dog. We were standing around within 15 feet, ready to help, but had no chance till we were not needed. The wolf was dead, and I hallowed to Snap, but he did not move. I bent over him. Snap, Snap, it's all over. You've killed him. But the dog was very still, and now I saw 2 deep wounds in his body. I tried to lift him. Let go, old fellow. It's all over. He growled feebly, and at last let go of the wolf. The rough cattlemen were kneeling around him now. Old Penrose's voice was trembling as he muttered, I wouldn't have had him hurt for 20 steers.
Steer — это бычок молодой.
I lifted him in my arms, called to him, and stroked his head. He snarled a little. He snarled a little. A farewell, as it proved, for he licked my hand as he did so, then never snarled again. Snarled again. Why gnarled? Snarled. That was a sad ride home for me. There was the skin of a monstrous wolf, but no other hint of triumph.
Triumph.
We buried the fearless one on a beauty back of the ranch house. Ben Roof, as he stood by, was heard to grumble by Jingo. There was grit. Clark grit. You can't raise cattle without grit.
Так, ну что ж, ребята, вот мы и добили нашего Снэпыча. К сожалению, грустная сказка. Жалко собачку. Волки позорные порвали. Ну, что ж сделаешь. Из сказки слов не выкинешь, да? Ну и в заключение хотелось бы пройтись опять по словам, которые мы тут подобрали. Так сказать, сделать маленький take-away. Take-away — это то, что забирается с собой. Ну, обычно это take-away — это про еду, а у нас про знания. Слова и некоторые там выраженницы, словосочетания. Так, поехали. Motley. Motley — это пестрый. Переводится как пестрый. Что у нас может быть пестрая? Пестрая рубашка. Motley shirt. Motley parrot. Motley pair — пестрый попугай. Motley thumbnail — это значит пестрая миниатюра. Thumbnail. Ну, это что, заставочка в ютубе. He is famous for his motley thumbnails. Например, да? Он известен за свои пестрые тумбнейлы. Ну, это не заставки, а как вот эти тумбы называются. Sinewy. Sinewy — это жилистый. Sinewy. Sinewy young man. Жилистый молодой человек. Молодой мужчина. Sinewy. Следующее слово beguile означает развести, обмануть, сделать так, чтобы другие люди делали то, что тебе надо, обманным путем. Beguile. All his team was beguiled. Следующее слово quirt. Quirt — это арапник. Кто не знает, что такое арапник, это типа кнута, такого небольшой кнут. Следующее выражение plunged ahead. Это значит ринулся, двинулся быстро вперед. Plunged. Нырнул вперед, двинулся вперед. Plunged ahead. Следующее слово swerve. Swerve — это значит свернуть, только резко. Это наподобие как turn aside, но это просто поворачивать в сторону. А swerve — это резкий поворот, если вдруг животное на трассе. Swerved. Rawhide. Rawhide — это значит недубленная кожа. Hide имеет два значения. Это глагол существительное hide. Hide — это прятаться, и to hide — прятаться. Hide — это неподготовленная, ну, может быть, подготовленная кожа животного, дубленая. А rawhide — это не дубленая, то есть сырая кожа. Следующее слово scorn. Это то, которое нашему читателю было услышать или прочитать впервые. Scorn — это презирать или презрение. Оно тоже имеет и существительное значение, и глагольное значение. Scorn — презирать или презрение. To scorn. Scorn. Scornful — это презрительный. Например, можно использовать так. She threw a scornful look at him. Тут прям на ходу-то придумал. Не знаю точно. То есть она бросила на него презрительный взгляд. Lope. Lope — это стиль бега или вариант бега лошади. стиль бега лошади, типа галопа, что-то такое похоже на галоп. Лопинг. Они бегут галопом. Лопинг, галопинг. Ну и заключительное слово, это слово butte. Butte это как гора такая, большой холм, но расходится она вот так, вверх пологий и резкие скаты. Butte. Buttes. Ну да, множественное число это buttes. Butte это один холм, buttes это много холмов. Итак, дорогие зрители, на этом мы завершаем это видео. Не забывайте, что я доступен в соцсетях, вы можете обращаться, можем потренироваться вместе. Я в силу своих знаний помогу вам, если вы начинающий, средний уровень, разговорный английский. Преподавание или разговорный английский, обращайтесь. Bye-bye!